Good evening, everybody. Better late than never. We're on the eve of UFC 309 from Madison Square Garden tomorrow night. If you thought we weren't going to cover it, you were very, very wrong. Myself and Jay's Fight Talk are here to discuss the main card of the one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year so far, shall we say. You know, you got the consensus greatest of all time, Jon Jones, headlining his back for the first time in 18 or so months against the greatest heavyweight of all time in many people's opinion. Yeah, arguably, absolutely. Yeah. So big main event. You know, we'll get into that. We'll get into the rest of the fights. But yeah, looking forward to this now, mate. There's a bit of edge on it now, isn't there? With fight week, there's lots of shenanigans going on. Tom Aspinall's going in there. Adam Capsule's getting denied interviews. There's all sorts going on.
I love it because I'm all for, build up and a bit of spike and needle. I don't know whether Jon Jones is trying too hard to find needle. I know he picked up on something Stipe had said about.
Stipe's he's not that guy, man. Stipe's not going to say stuff.
And think I'm an arsehole. And then he said, now I watched the bitch. He didn't actually call Jon Jones a bitch. He said something like, let's get it on, bitch, like a generic statement.
Yeah.
John's trying
to work himself up, isn't he?
Yeah. He's trying to G himself up, which I get. The Tom Aspinall thing, John's made it worse for himself. He should have just said, listen, I'm focusing on Saturday.
The crowd at the press conference of Johnny McKibben, and Tom was denied. He was banned access to go into the press conference by the UFC because everyone knew that it would have just been centered around Tom Aspinall and Jones. So it's making all the noise, man. It's making noise.
He's weighed in.
Weighed in. Yeah.
Oh, did you see Adam Capsule with his question?
With his hat reveal. Yes.
It's me, John. Fucking hell.
You would have
keep his hat on.
Yeah,
I love Adam. I love him, but that was dramatic, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was dramatic.
He revealed himself.
Yeah, he would have thought that Jones would have refused the question or something, probably. If
I think that potentially that's what he was hoping for, because he's done that before. I have seen Jon Jones do that before with who's the guy that he refused to speak to? Luke Thomas.
I thought it was Ariel. Probably both.
Possibly, but I have seen him point blank when Luke Thomas was stood up at an event like that, and Jon Jones went, "Nah, not speaking to you, mate. Absolutely not."
Well, he spoke to Nick. He spoke to Nick anyway in the end. So
I don't think he not realizes, because Nick doesn't do that show, does he? So John hasn't seen the show that they do together. Tom and Adam.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's done great numbers for Adam, and the Fight Disciples and TNT have got a lot of coverage off it. Tom Aspinall's bigger than he's ever been.
Yeah, Tom's flying this week. He's been doing all the podcasts and all the TV stuff. There's no point in him weighing in this morning. None of them would have. Stipe might have done. John
possibly.
Jones
John had just refused.
Yeah.
Nice teeth, by the way, Tom.
Yeah. Tom's been to Turkey.
He's got his Bobby Firmino's done.
Yeah.
Old Brendan Rodgers. But no, you can't not be excited about the main event. I mean, UFC 309 has been meant to be for a while. It's an MSG, so it's a home event as such for John. I know he's out of New Mexico, but he's from Rochester, New York. So he's it's a home event for him. Isn't Chris Weidman fighting on the prelims as well?
Yeah, Weidman's on there,
I think Bo Nickel's not that far from New York.
Pennsylvania, Bo Nickel trains. I don't know if he's
just round the corner as a couple of hours, so I think he'll have a lot of that. Look, it's not the best card, but we've been spoiled over this last year. There's been some massive events, but to see Jon Jones, it's always a great night. And Stipe, for me, he's one of the greatest heavyweights the UFC's ever had. He just come up against Francis Ngannou when Francis Ngannou had the rub of the green and got caught and got knocked out. But you can't forget what he did before that to take rip the title away from Verdum. He submitted flipping Alistair Overeem. He's beat a who's who. And I think he holds the record for title defenses, does he, at 3?
Yeah.
Cain Velasquez had it before that, didn't he? And then, so as old as he is at 42, Jones is 37. You know, they've both got mileage on him. I think Jones has potentially got more mileage on him than Stipe.
I don't think that's that outlandish to say. You know, ultimately as well, Jon Jones is the one who's carrying more than his natural body weight, I would suggest, as well at heavyweight. You know, Stipe, the odds are way out for me. Stipe is wrote off completely in this situation.
It's not a 50-50, but it's a 65-35 for me.
Yeah, John's a favourite, but he's not like the odds are suggesting that Stipe has zero chance. It's
John's always the favourite. If he fought Tom Aspinall, he'd be the favourite. Jon is always the favourite. There's no one I think the closest we've ever seen him is when he fought DC, right? Because of DC's wrestling. Jon dumped him on his head, you know. He'll always be the favourite, but to dismiss Stipe Miocic's chances, mental, because he's a Golden Gloves level boxer. You know, his wrestling's.
He's a better boxer than Jon. He's a better boxer than Jon.
Way better. Jon's not particularly good with his hands. He's unorthodox, his job.
He's not.
And he catches people with kicks and elbows from weird angles. But Stipe is more natural with his boxing. He's a boxer. He's got a boxing stance, but can wrestle too. You know, so it'd be intriguing to see if Jon can get him to ground. You know, because he won't be able to do what he did with Cyril. Cyril's not a wrestler. I think me or you.
Stipe's 2 seasons. Yeah. Stipe's 2 seasons, man. Cyril Gane has a hole in his game. Stipe's been around for too long. You know, I'd be impressed if Jon did that. But then again, we don't know what kind of. I know Stipe looked good on the scales, but he hasn't fought in nearly 4 years. If we're being completely honest, you know, we don't know. He might just look terrible, and that is in play as well. Jon might look terrible. He's fought once in the last 4 years. You know.
It could be a stinker. As excited as we are, it could be a stinker. Could be a lot.
Could it go the whole way?
Say again, sorry.
Could it go the whole way? 5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It could be a lot of scrambles, cage grappling, you know, up against the cage, juxing for position, just holding. You know, I don't see that. I see it being fast and over in a couple of rounds for me, but I could also see a scenario where it's a long, drawn-out 5-round, not war. I think if it goes past 3 or 4 rounds, it'll be a back and forth sort of scrambling and holding against the cage and, you know, holding each other with, is it whizzer where you have their arm underneath?
Yeah, it's going to be hard for Jon doing the 25 minutes carrying the weight, I think. Definitely, you know. I guess we'll go to predictions. I think Jon gets it done. I've gone on record earlier in the week to say that he wins it by a finish, maybe a submission, but I'm kind of questioning that now. If I'm being completely honest, like after what I've watched and what I've seen, I've got this really horrible, sneaky feeling for Stipe. Like I really have, and like it's just coming to me. Like as we get towards the fight, I can't unsee catching him, but like it's not that's not what I think is going to happen. I just have a weird feeling about it. And like, it's not like I was convinced Ilia Topuria was going to knock out Max, wasn't I? I was saying that nonstop the other week, but you know, I can't back against Jon Jones. I'm not silly, but like, I just think that we need to consider, well, we are, but I mean, in general, people need to consider Stipe Miocic more in this fight.
Well, I'm dusting off my Jon Jones Reebok t-shirt for tomorrow night. And I'm sticking with my original pick. I think Jon Jones will stop Stipe Miocic in round number 2.
There we go. Dana's just said that if Jones retires tomorrow night, Tom will automatically straight away become the heavyweight champion.
Dana, I'm surprised he hasn't said something like, if he retires, he's grounded.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Michael Chandler is rematching Charles Oliveira. It's a 5-round co-main event. We're not going to need them. I know we've just spoken about
I'm changing my pick.
Okay, interesting. It was an amazing fight first time round. Chandler been out for 2 years since Madison Square Garden against Dustin Poirier. Every time he steps foot inside Madison Square Garden, this will be his 3rd time in MSG in 6 UFC fights. So exactly half of his fights have been at MSG. He had the Justin Gaethje, which is one of the best fights we've ever seen in a UFC octagon. It was absolutely insane. Yeah. You had Dustin Poirier, which was brilliant too. He hurt Poirier multiple times, ended up getting finished with a rear naked choke. And now he's going to have another war with Charles Oliveira. The first one in Texas was for the heavyweight for the light world championship. And Chandler came inches away. He was so close, wasn't he, mate, in the first round?
Very.
To stopping Oliveira, and then 10 seconds into the second round, it was all over for him. So yeah, what's your thoughts on the fight?
1 second.
You're right.
There's no one there. Dickhead. Sorry.
You're right.
My thoughts on the fight. So, I mean, I sort of pissed on the chips yesterday or the day before, where I was sort of no selling it. You know, nobody wants to see the fight. And then I sat and thought about it, and I thought, well, you know, the two of the best in the division. It's got title implications. We've got a former champ. You know, Michael Chandler's won every belt. He's won a belt in other organisations and reigned for a long time. He was the face of Bellator for 5 years, pretty much. He was the face of Bellator. Some of the greatest fights I've ever seen have involved Michael Chandler. If you haven't seen Chandler versus Eddie Alvarez 1, 2, and 3, then you need to watch them, because they are, as Sam just said, absolutely phenomenal. Something has changed my mind. I've watched. I know what you mean.
I know what you mean as well, because I'm the same as well. Like, Chandler's going to pull it out, isn't he? He's going to do something.
Well, I was dismissing his chances. I said, Oliveira will get hold of him and he'll stop him in second again. And then I haven't watched him bedded, but I've just watched a few interviews, and I follow both of them on socials. And today,
Chandler talks so well, doesn't he? He talks so well.
He does, and he's just made me a believer again. And I just think that it's about taking chances, isn't it? And I think this is Michael Chandler's chance to really step out of the shadows. I know he's had some big fights, and I know everybody knows who he is, but he's always faltered at the final hurdle, or, you know, got clipped and got knocked out when he's been doing really well. I think this time he's not going to make those same mistakes, because, you know, he got caught with a hook, and we're finished from there. Before that, he was piecing Oliveira up.
I was, yeah. It was a great first round for him, and he got out of a submission attempt by Charles as well.
And he is so strong, and it's so hard.
Oh, he knows. He hits so hard. He doesn't. He puts everything into every shot as well.
Dan Hooker out with half a hook.
Like top of the head, wasn't it?
But it was like Hooker was pulling away, and he just caught the end of it. But yeah, so I've changed my pick. Same round, but I'm going to go Chandler round 2. Knockout.
Love it. I could see it. I really could. Michael Chandler is just about it, man. You want a fighter. You want someone who's just going to...
Do you know what, though? I love everything about him. I mean...
And Charles as well, in fairness, the pair of them.
Charles is great, but obviously I don't feel as connected to him because I don't speak Portuguese. So everything's translated secondhand. Whereas with Chandler, you know, I know social media is not real life, but that's the only window I've got into his life. But he seems a stand-up guy, a nice guy. You know, he's got adopted children. In fact, he's adopted black children. Now, I know that shouldn't be a thing, but it is for some people. And, I've you know, he's been asked why, and, you know, you shouldn't. And, you know, it's confusing for the kids. And bollocks, man. And him and his wife can have children. They've not adopted because they can't have kids. I watched an interview with him before, and they asked him why, and he said his wife's always looked after children underprivileged, and she always wanted to adopt. So they adopted a little boy, and then they've adopted another little boy. You know, things like that go a long way with me. You know, I'm from you know my life story. I had a shitty upbringing, so I like to see things like that. Mm-hmm. You know, if I were a bit younger, I think, you know, I'd like to look at adopting and seeing if I could help in some way. So yeah, I'm as I've said, I'm going with my heart, I think, and I've changed my pick, and I want Michael Chandler to win. But actually, some of the things that I've heard from him, I thought he's really not that he's never dialed in, you know, like he's going to try any harder than he ordinarily would. But I just think that he's gonna be a little bit more on it, and you know, not drop his hand to get caught with a hook like he did last time, and keep his concentration a little bit more, because he knows that if he loses tomorrow, it's a long way back to that belt, a long way back for him, because he's never been the champ. Charles can win 2, lose 1, win 2, lose, and still be in and around the title mix because he had it for so long. Whereas Chandler's always been the nearly man, nearly.
Yeah.
Can he come from Bell? You were in the ceiling.
Hungry, man. He's hungry.
You're not good enough to do it here. I think he is, and I think tomorrow night he's going to do it, and then we will see Chandler versus Islamos Sarukian.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
International Fight Week 2025.
Yeah, you could be right. It's a fair call on that one. Absolutely. The UK representation. Well, we've got.
What's your prediction for the Chandler?
I'm sticking with Charles in the first round in a barn burner. I called it all week, but
yeah,
I want Michael Chandler to win. If I'm being completely honest, I want him to get a run. He's been shafted, Randy. He's been fucked around a little bit the last few years.
Connor mugged him off, and
I want a bit of I want a bit of good vibes going to Iron Michael Chandler. So hopefully he does it, but unfortunately,
picking him.
Yeah, I'm picking Charles because I think I always pick who I think will win the fight. Then I always say who I want to win the fight. But I think Charles does it. We've got a couple of UK guys, the Welsh gangsters on the prelims, but on the main card.
My son loves him. My son knows him. He's a sort of a friend of a friend. Orban Elliott. Good fighter.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he actually got a great story. He's saying that on one of the MSG cards, he was washing pots in Nando's or something. When I can't remember, was it when Darren Till was fighting at MSG?
I think
against,
so. Yeah, he said he was washing pots. And 2 years fast forward, here he is, man.
He's at MSG. That's a brilliant story, and credit to him. One of the biggest UFC prospects, somebody who's very in favour because he keeps getting the big slots. His second time in a row he's fought on a Jon Jones undercard. Bo Nickel is 6-0, starting to fall in love with his hands, but his background is obviously elite in wrestling. It's going to be an interesting one, this, against Paul Craig, who's, I think he's 1-4 in his last 5, Craig, and he's 1-2 at middleweights and he's dropping down from light heavy, but I fear for him on the feet, Paul Craig, in this one. But however, if Bo wants to take him down and get him on his back, Paul could throw something up, man. We're sitting against Ankalaev.
Paul Craig, for me, is possibly the best fighter in the UFC on his back or off his back, should I say. He's very dangerous on his back. I mean, he caught Ankalaev and Jamal Hill
as well.
Yeah,
I got him.
He turned Jamal Hill's arm back to
brutal.
Front, Brutal. It was horrendous.
Yeah,
I fear for Paul Craig in this fight. He hadn't painted his face blue and none of that for weigh-in, and I'm hoping he does it for the ceremonials tonight. I like him to be consistent, and I give him a chance in this fight. Like as you say, if it goes to the ground, I think he's got as good a chance as any as catching a sub. I just think Bo Nickel's too fresh, hits a little bit too hard. No disrespect to Paul, but his hands are not the best.
No, he struggles there big time, doesn't he, Paul?
And I think Bo Nichols it'll be very similar to the who did Cody Durden, wasn't it?
I
think it'll be very similar to that. It might be close in spurts, but I think Nickel will have his way because he's strong on the hips. I know Paul's good when they get to the ground, but if they're grappling, Bo's got power in his hips to be able to manipulate him and move him to where he wants him. So if he falls like directly on top of him and he's not in his guard, then it's going to be difficult for Paul because wrestling and jiu-jitsu are not the same. And Bo Nickel hits pretty hard, man.
He does hit hard. Yeah, he's falling in love with his hands.
Weatherspoon? What was that kid called? Weatherspoon? The concussive puncher that he cracked him and
he lit him up.
Him.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, left hook, wasn't it? Leaped him with a left hook. Yeah.
And then
I've got both knocking out Paul in the first round. I think he'll catch him. What do you think?
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think.
Well, it'll be interesting if it goes to the deck. That's all.
If it goes to the deck, but I've got a funny feeling Bo will just run at him and just overload
too fast. I think too fresh, too young. I think he'll.
And I love Paul Craig. Don't get it.
Oh, he's great.
I'd love him to win. I'd love him to take his back and get his neck. But I'm like you. I fear for him in this fight. I think he's out of his depth. Coming up against somebody that.
Well, they're using his name to propel Bo, aren't they? That's what
they are. They are. I'm not sure if Bo Nickal's as good as they say he is, but he's definitely on a bit of a tear at the moment. I don't see him dominating middleweight. I think once he meets somebody that can wrestle as good and it's hard, I think he'll struggle. I think Duplessis would beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, that wouldn't be close right now, but maybe in a couple of years' time.
Couple of years.
Just finishing off the main card, we've got Araujo against Karine Silva. I think that'll be fairly simple for Silva. I think the UFC are propelling forward a little bit. Not too sure why that's got a main card slot, but anyway, it has not too much to.
I'm surprised Chris Weidman's not on main card.
Well, Chris Weidman was on the main card and they switched it up for Mauricio Rufy against James Lontop. I can kind of see why, if I'm being completely honest with you. This Rufy and this fighting nerd.
I mean, Rufy's an animal, an absolute animal. But I thought Jim Miller might have got on as well, with him being sort of homers as such. But, Rufy is, I mean, what can you say about him? His jiu-jitsu's awesome. His wrestling's great.
He's just a finisher, man. His
punch power is frightening. So, yeah, I'm excited for that. I expect him to get a win.
Yeah, he should win, in my opinion, also. Just grabbing a look at the prelims quickly. Jonathan Martinez is back against Marcus McGee. That's the featured prelim. That's a decent fight, to be fair.
Good scrap. Yeah.
That is a very good fight. Chris Weidman against Eric Anders. It's not a fight that, these guys have seasoned vets.
I think Anders will beat. I think Chris Weidman's not the same.
Weidman's been fighting for so long, hasn't he?
Just the injury. I don't think he should have come back after the injury. He should have just retired. And I think Anders will clip him. And I think I see Anders stopping Weidman. Unless Weidman can turn back the clock. But Weidman must be nearly 40 now.
Oh, God, yeah. You remember how many years ago was the Anderson Silva fights? It's insane.
2013 or something like that.
Yeah, it's been at least 10 years ago. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And Jim Miller against Damon Jackson, not a bad fight either. David Anana's fighting Roberto Romero. And then the early prelims, you got heavyweights, Marcin Tybura against Jonathan Diniz. It's not a bad fight. Mickey Gore's on there against Ramiz Braramaj. Don't know too much about him, in fairness. Then Oban, who we were just talking about, is fighting Basil Hafiz. I've heard of his opponent.
It's a tough fight.
Yeah, who did his opponent fight? Hafiz. He fought someone in his UFC debut. And Jack Della Maddalena, I'm sure.
Right. I think Oban will win this on points. I think he'll win, but it'll be tough. Yeah,
he's a sizable favourite, Oban, actually, in that one. And then you've got Veronica Hardy's opening up the card.
Dan's missus.
Yeah.
Is Dan allowed to go?
Dan always corners her in the UFC.
I wasn't sure because he got fired, didn't he? So I wasn't sure if they were going to be assholes about it and not letting him.
No, he's always in a corner in the UFC and he wears the UFC gear and everything. So it must just be an agreement that he's a head coach at the end of the day. So
she's good.
Yeah, she is
good, man.
Yeah, she's fighting Eduarda Mora, and that kicks off the early prelims.
I don't know much about her opponent. I'm not going to lie.
No. But yeah, that's it. Maybe we've got a huge
solid card, man.
It is a solid card, actually. Depth wise, it's got decent fights from the outset, actually. But the top two fights, they're just kind of what we live for, aren't they? Oliveira against Chandler and Jones against Miocic.
Oh yeah.
I'll
be there, coffee in hand.
We'll always be there. Ultimately we turn up to them all, but we're privileged when we get the nights like we're going to get tomorrow night at Madison Square Garden. So make sure you catch us for the live watch-alongs. We'll do Nickel, Craig, Oliveira, Chandler, and Jones against Miocic. Probably from in and around 4 a.m. I'd say Bo Nickel will start. So 4:35 for Jon Jones, probably something like that. Bit of a later start with the UFC. The main card doesn't start till 3 a.m. with the UFC. So
so we'll be on about 4. We'll be there.
We'll be there about 4. Big up to Jay's Fight Talk, as always.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Another preview showdown, and we'll see what goes down tomorrow night at MSG. Is the Jon Jones